Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 5 Bytes podcast. I'm your host, Rory Monahan. Coming up on this week's episode, Microsoft's trusted signing service is being utilized by bad actors. Also, Tencent lends credence to the previous efficiency claims made by DeepSeek. And Bill Gates reckons professionals in 3 lines of work are safe from AI taking their jobs. For this and more, keep listening to this episode of the podcast, which, of course, as always, is brought to you by my sponsors. And that includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops. And of course, also brought to you by Master Packager, who make an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoy the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for some news. On last week's episode of the podcast, I covered a story about supply chain attacks leveraging problematic GitHub actions. Well, this week, bleepycomputer.com reported that the primary target thus far has been Coinbase, which is obviously the cryptocurrency exchange. Well, they do more than cryptocurrency, but they're pretty much synonymous with cryptocurrency. But reports confirm that although Coinbase was the main target, the attack did not cause damage to Coinbase's assets or its AgentKit project. While over 23,000 projects utilized the changed files actions that have been compromised, it's now reported that only 218 repositories were ultimately impacted by the serious breach. Bleepycomputer.com also contacted Coinbase about the incident, but has yet to receive a reply. So they're possibly holding their cards close to their chest on this, but they have disclosed that there hasn't been any serious ramifications. So yeah, hopefully that's true, because I'm sure it would affect a lot of people if that is not the case. BleepyComputer.com this week also reported that Veaam has patched a critical remote code execution vulnerability as part of Patch Tuesday, which is tracked as CVE-2025-23120. And this is in its backup and replication software, and it impacts domain joined installations. The remote code execution can be achieved with any domain user, making this one pretty devastating. Now, it should be added that Veaam's best practices recommended to customers is to not domain join the backup service, but reportedly, many customers still opt to domain join. The vulnerability affects Veaam Backup and Replications version 12.3.0.310 and all earlier versions of 12 builds. The company has fixed it in version 12.3.1 with build 12.3.1.1139, and this was released just recently. So if you are using that service and you have it domain joined, you'll want to get this patched immediately. The Microsoft Trusted Signing Service, which is a cloud-based service that allows developers to easily have their programs signed by Microsoft, has reportedly been utilized by bad actors to sign their malware with short-lived 3-day code signing certificates. While the certificates expire after 3 days from being issued, executables signed with them will still be considered valid until the issuer revokes the certificate. It has been suggested by BleepyComputer.com that given Microsoft's clout, files signed with this service are seen as reputable, but obviously not all files signed using the service are trustworthy if bad actors are using the service. To protect against abuse, Microsoft is currently only allowing certificates to be issued under a company name if they have been in business for 3 years. However, individuals can sign up and get approved more easily if they are okay with the certificates being issued under their name. A cybersecurity researcher and developer known as Squibbly Doo, who has been tracking malware campaigns abusing certificates for years, told BleepyComputer.com that they believe threat actors are switching to Microsoft's service out of convenience. For their part, Microsoft told BleepyComputer.com, quote, "We use active threat intelligence monitoring to constantly look for any misuse or abuse of our signing service. When we detect threats, we immediately mitigate with actions such as broad certificate revocation and account suspension. The malware samples you shared are detected by our anti-malware products, and we have already taken action to revoke the certificates and prevent further account abuse, end quote. So yeah, certainly a service that is handy because certificate management is one of the banes of pretty much every developer and just IT professional. So having a service that makes that easier is a big win. But I guess with that convenience, it also comes at a cost because it makes it convenient for these bad actors to go get signed certificates for their executables. And bleepycomputer.com are indicating that since it's coming from Microsoft, it's deemed reputable, which, that maybe makes it a little bit easier for these bad actors to get away with some of their attacks. Valve, the makers of the very popular gaming store Steam, has removed a game titled Sniper Phantom's Resolution from the Steam marketplace following multiple users reporting that the demo installer infected their systems with information stealing malware. While it appears a little unclear what data exactly the perpetrators were after, the game also included Fiddler for inspecting network traffic. So, all of us in enterprise IT will be very familiar with Fiddler, and it's interesting that this was essentially encapsulated and used in this malware attempt. Users that install the game have likely infected their computers with malware, and they are recommended to uninstall the title and run a full system scan to remove remaining malicious files. You probably want to go further than that and wipe your system, I would think. But yeah, it's just interesting. I know this is not necessarily enterprise IT related, but given the fact that Steam is so widely used, and I have seen it on people's machines when they're sharing their screens, people who are maybe permitted to use their own devices, there's still that potential to expose company data on those devices if they're running software such as a game that has included malware. Unfortunately, more VS Code extensions have been found to be malicious. Now, this is unlike the two themes that I covered in the last two episodes of the podcast that turned out to not be malicious, but were disabled by Microsoft anyway because it had suspect code. But these extensions that are now reportedly being disabled are aban.shiba and aban.psych hello world. And these were apparently downloaded 7 and 8 times before they were eventually removed from the store. So not huge numbers. And I don't know who the heck would go and install extensions name that. Like even the names are suspicious. But reportedly, according to bleepycomputer.com, the extensions contain a PowerShell command that downloads and executes another PowerShell script that acts as a ransomware from a remote server hosted on Amazon AWS. Researchers and bleepycomputer.com have raised concerns over the vetting of extensions in VS Code, and this certainly is not the first case of such a thing getting past Microsoft, and I doubt it will be the last. So yeah, if you're using VS Code and using extensions, be careful what you're doing. Google has officially launched its Drive app for ARM-compatible Windows PCs. So this is Google Drive. And it first rolled out the ARM64 app in beta last year, but now it is generally available as of this week. Like the existing Google Drive app, the ARM64 version lets Windows PCs running Qualcomm Snapdragon processors store, sync, and access files. The app is only available on devices with Windows 11 and Microsoft WebView 2, which Google says is typically included with Windows 11. So this is just another widely used application that is now ARM compatible. Other applications such as Google Chrome and more have already released ARM compatible applications, and this is pretty much just the way things are going to go. Most enterprise applications should soon be ARM compatible, probably within the next, I would guess, 12 to 24 months. Well, not all enterprise applications, because there's plenty of applications that are kind of older and probably won't be reworked to any large extent. But you know what I mean. Widely used applications that are still currently actively developed and progressing. In a new Microsoft 365 Message Center post, Microsoft announced that OneNote for Windows 10 will be out of support when Windows 10 reaches end of support on October 14th of this year. which, makes sense. It's kind of in the name. OneNote for Windows 10. But as a result, Microsoft is urging organizations to fully transition to OneNote on Windows or OneNote Microsoft 365 and uninstall the legacy application as soon as possible. Migrating ensures continued access to the latest features, security updates, and a modernized experience. End quote. PC World has reported that in a blog post, Microsoft has announced that the dev channel for Windows 11 will be moving to 26200 series builds, which are based on Windows 11 24H2, but they added that they will be getting behind the scenes platform changes that cause it to diverge from the beta channel builds. According to Windows latest, this could be interpreted as Microsoft starting work on this year's 25H2 update, though it isn't explicitly confirmed, which, it hasn't been confirmed. And they matter of factly have stated that this is based on Windows 11 24H2. I feel like it's pure speculation on the part of these media outlets that this will be 25H2, but, it is worth stating that, 25H2 likely release probably September, October this year. So we should be seeing some of that development work entering dev and beta channels in the coming months. In a quick follow up to a story I covered last year on the podcast, popular genealogy service 23andMe has filed for bankruptcy, and security experts are urging customers to delete their data since that data is likely to be sold to the highest bidder. As someone who has a little bit of an interest in genealogy, I believe 23andMe is more popular on the other side of the pond, so with American customers. If you do have an account with the service and they have your data, it's probably a good idea to export your data and then delete it and close your account because this data could be quite lucrative and maybe fall into the hands of people you don't necessarily want to have it. Anthropic's Claude Sonnet version 3.7 can reportedly now retrieve current data via web scraping, according to Ars Technica, so it is no longer solely dependent on dated data. This is a jump ahead to catch up with ChatGPT, which also infamously worked off dated software when it first entered the mainstream. To get current info factored into your queries, you must have a paid subscription, however. So if you're using a free tier or you're using one of those aggregator services like I do in order to access multiple different languages at once, you're going to have a paid subscription in order for it to return results of up to date information, such as current news stories, for example. According to another report by Ars Technica, Cloudflare have officially announced a feature that has been talked about for some time. It's called AI Labyrinth, which aims to thwart AI companies that crawl websites without permission to collect training data for large language models that power AI assistants like ChatGPT. Instead of simply blocking bots, Cloudflare's new system lures them into a maze of realistic looking but irrelevant pages, wasting the crawler's computing resources. Thus the name. The company says the content served to bots is deliberately irrelevant to the website being crawled, but it is carefully sourced or generated using real scientific facts, such as neutral information about biology, physics, or mathematics, to avoid spreading misinformation. They have coined the phrase next generation honeypot in relation to this service. Yeah, I could definitely see the benefit of this and why people with their own sites and maybe blogs and stuff like that would want to use this, especially if they're already maybe leveraging Cloudflare for a CDN for their site. But at the same time, wasting compute cycles of these large AI services isn't going to be a net positive for the environment, unfortunately. It's a really difficult one because it seems like probably the best approach, particularly when I covered a story recently where some of the AI services that are US based are trying to lobby in order to get the right to take other people's information and data and not have it be a copyright violation. So this may be the only real means or recourse for protecting your information. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how the regulations change in the future. And it'll be interesting to see if the uptake for this service is something that is popular. Microsoft Security Copilot is reportedly being extended with AI agents that are designed to autonomously assist overwhelmed security teams, according to a report by The Verge. Microsoft is unveiling 6 of its own AI agents for Security Copilot, as well as 5 that have been created by its partners. Microsoft's 6 security agents will be available in preview next month, and they're reportedly designed to do things like triage and process phishing and data loss alerts, prioritize critical incidents, and monitor for vulnerabilities. Microsoft is also working with OneTrust, Aviatrix, BlueVoyant, Tanium, and Fletch to enable some third-party security agents too, and these extensions will make it easier to analyze data breaches with OneTrust or perform root cause analysis of network outages and failures with Aviatrix as an example. On this podcast, and in most mainstream news outlets, there was coverage of efficiency gains in the past claimed by DeepSeek with their AI model, and there was plenty of skepticism about the claims in the following weeks after they made their first announcements. Interestingly, Tencent, which is another Chinese tech company, has been indicating a slowing of capital expenditure by them on GPUs for their large language models. Chief Strategy Officer of Tencent, James Mitchell, stated, quote, "There was a period of time last year when there was a belief that every new generation of large language model required an order of magnitude more GPUs. That period of time ended with the breakthroughs that DeepSeek demonstrated, and now the industry and we within the industry are getting much higher productivity on a large language model training from existing GPUs without needing to add additional GPUs at the pace previously expected." End quote. So probably important, that little qualifier, at the pace previously expected. So it's probably still requiring more GPUs, but maybe not quite the number expected in the past. And as a result, it's not requiring the same level of spend that was predicted in the past. Hey, which, this is a good thing. In general, it's a good thing. Less resources to achieve the same result. That's awesome. And I guess this adds some credence to the fact that DeepSeek is achieving those efficiency gains that it had claimed in its own study. So that's pretty cool to see, and hopefully others follow suit. Which, I just covered a story about those security agents by Microsoft and some of their partners. That certainly seems to be the direction that most are traveling, which is having these agents that don't rely on such a broad scope of data in order to achieve what they do. And that may be where efficiency gains also happen. You don't need such a kind of broad reasoning language model to complete specific tasks within an enterprise. So if enterprises are able to use that more narrow focus, then there should be less requirement for over the top GPUs and NPUs and power drain as well. There was an interesting review and opinion piece of sorts on WindowsCentral.com recently about AI integration by hardware manufacturers, and it heaped praise on an unlikely source, and that was on HP, claiming that they are the one PC company actually delivering useful AI features. So, quite the claim, I thought. The article goes through some of the security features that leverage AI, such as HP's Wolf Pro Security Suite, HP Sure Start, and Sure Sense. The report suggests HP have taken an approach which does not push these services into people's faces, basically shouting at them that, hey, look, this is an AI service you're using. They are actually more understated and simply work within the tool sets leveraging AI to provide more value. It has been suggested in the article that HP's approach differs to competitors who make big claims about AI but do not deliver because they focus on enabling employees to be productive with HP hardware rather than trying to use AI to replace employee productivity. I thought it was interesting to see such positive press about HP, as they are a company which has gained a lot of negative press in recent years. And from comments, it seems like others in the community also look favorably on some of the HP laptop offerings as of late. So, an unexpected turnaround in the fortunes of HP, which, hey, that's great to see because we do need more competition in the space. Finally, in the news for this week, Microsoft co founder Bill Gates recently predicted that AI would replace humans for most things. He indicated that it would be mostly up to humans how they interact with AI, choosing what to preserve for themselves. He jokingly apparently indicated that no one would like to watch computers playing baseball, which is absolutely true. Like I was telling my wife before our son was even born, so many years ago now, that it's like, well, we should like encourage them to do things that are creative, because it's creative things that people will value humans doing in future, or so I thought. Like I'm not going to pay to see a robot playing the guitar, for example. I'll still see a human do that and be impressed with the skill that it takes for a human to do that. But yeah, then companies like Toys R Us started using AI generated ads. So, large corporations, they're willing to compromise on the creativity of humans and put out any old thing. So maybe that's not 100% true. Maybe I was being naive. But regardless, it's not about me. It's about what Bill Gates was saying. But Bill more recently suggested coders, energy experts, and biologists are safe from the hostile AI takeover. Despite many claims that coding is something services such as Anthropic's Claude Sonnet will gobble up, Bill Gates says human professionals are still essential to the process as they'll help identify and correct errors, refine algorithms, and bolster AI development. Now, I'm no genius or billionaire, but I agree with Bill on that one. And that's something I've been saying in blog posts and videos and on this podcast in the past as well. Gates went on to claim that AI is great at diagnosing diseases and analyzing DNA, but reiterates that the technology lacks the creativity for biological research and scientific discovery. And on the other hand, he also says that AI won't replace energy experts because the field is too complex to be fully automated. So now, whilst he highlighted only these three fields, I feel like it's going to be a lot more fields, to be honest. And in general, I've been saying, and again, I'm no genius, so don't take my word for it. It's just an opinion. And, opinions are like something because everyone has one. But yeah, it should really be augmenting professional people, skilled people, experienced people who have the critical thinking and are able to provide oversight of the results provided by these AI services. But that's just my take. And it seems like Bill somewhat agrees with that, although he's narrowed it down to just three fields where they're not going to be taken over completely by AI. But now, this episode's scripts, tricks, and tips. I'll keep it short this week because I feel like this episode's gone over 20 minutes already. But first up, Chrissy had shared a blog post on getting started with PSOpenAI and GitHub models. So I've been seeing a lot more about leveraging PowerShell to trigger or query AI services. And PSOpenAI is an excellent resource. It's one I've used in some of my automation scripts that are available on my GitHub repository. And I've also been seeing some interesting articles and examples of leveraging GitHub as like the CI/CD for running some of these automated workflows that leverage AI. So very cool to see this blog post, and I advise if you're in the PowerShell space to check it out. And finally, OpenAI has launched an academy to help you train to become skilled at using ChatGPT and Sora. So if you've just been kind of throwing yourself into the service and trying to figure out the best way to use it yourself, there's now actually some guidance on, what the best parameters are to use, but also how to leverage it for specific types of use cases too. So a very interesting resource and probably one that's sorely needed. But that's it for this episode of the podcast. As always, thank you so much for listening.